Cool. Well, welcome everyone to our La Trobe University Energy Breakthrough Workshop. This is the third year we've been running these workshops, and we just love bringing out new ideas and engaging with young people on all sorts of different fascinating things. And we've got an excellent session this morning. I can see from how we've been going in the preparation that this is going to be a lot of fun. So thank you mainly to La Trobe for putting on today. This has been a bucket load of effort to put on, so including Dr. David Hoxley and Dr. Russell Anderson here, who have put in a power of work putting it all together. But there's literally a cast of thousands who have gone amongst it this morning. So without any further ado, I really want to get into our interactive session as much as we can. But to kick us off this morning, I'd like to welcome Rob Stevenson, who's the head of the campus here in Bendigo. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks, Nigel, and it's fantastic to have you all here joining us in Bendigo this morning. I'd like to acknowledge that in Bendigo we're gathered on Barra country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging of the Dja Dja Wurrung people who've been custodians of the land on which we stand for many centuries. It's fantastic to have you all here joining us from across the state this morning, and I'm really excited. La Trobe's been involved with Energy Breakthrough for a number of years now, and I know from the involvement of my own son what a fantastic event it is. So for all of you who've been to Energy Breakthrough in Maryborough in the past, I know that you will know just how good it is. But for those of you for whom it's the first event you've been to, I'm really excited for what you're going to find when you get to Maryborough in just about 3 weeks from now. My son actually graduated from a paramedics program last year, and he went to Energy Breakthrough all the way through his high school years, and he's going to be back again this year as a pit marshal. So he just can't let it go, and I think it's that good an event. And I think the things you learn as part of it in working with teams, the skills you pick up, not just in how fast you can drive that car around the track, but also in the teamwork, learning to do your design and your presentations are all a really important part of what you learn as you go through school. And Dane, my son, reckons that it was probably the best part of what he did for his whole 6 years at high school. So I know that it's a fantastic event. I'm really excited for what you're going to find in 3 weeks, but I also know there's still a fair bit of time between now and then to get lots of work done. And what you're going to hear this morning in the discussion and the presentations from David and from Russell about your fitness and your aerobic strength and things like improving safety through Internet of Things and sensors is going to be really important, because I know there's lots of stuff gets done, and even on the weekend before, I know that a lot of you will be probably working pretty late after school to get those final bits and pieces ready and to do your presentation. So I'm going to get out of your way now. It's fantastic to have you here virtually at La Trobe. If you were here personally, I'd take you on a tour of the facilities, but for now I think learning about EBT and giving you some of those extra clues and extra tips so that you can be the very best you can be in 3 weeks' time at Maryborough, I think is fantastic. For those joining us from Maryborough Education Centre, I was over in Maryborough last Friday night and talking to a few people, and I know how much the people in Maryborough are really excited about Energy Breakthrough and having the event back in 3 weeks' time. So have a fantastic day today. Hope you learn lots, and we look forward to how well you do in the Energy Breakthrough in 3 weeks' time. Thanks, Nigel.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob. And I'd like to introduce my next guest, Meg. Welcome. How are you?
Good, thanks for having me.
That's good. So you, just like Rob's son Dane, who is an excellent volunteer with us at the Energy Breakthrough, you actually did the breakthrough yourself. So where did you go to school, Meg?
So I went to school at Catholic College Bendigo, graduated 2 years ago, and it's now called Catherine Macaulay College. So yeah, I did Energy Breakthrough with Dane as well, so for 6 years.
All right, there's something good in the water at Catholic College Bendigo. How good's that? So when you were at school, what was your sort of favourite part of the Energy Breakthrough program?
Oh, I loved everything about Energy Breakthrough. I think for me, the social side. It may not necessarily interact with all of the things you'll be learning today, but just the friendships that you make with everyone and the people that you meet along the way is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? And I find that often maybe you see school groups and you think, that group probably wouldn't normally hang out together, but through the energy breakthrough, be it the physical side of riding the vehicle or the technical side of building it or the presentation side, it brings all those different people together, which is pretty cool. So fast forward to now, what are you doing at La Trobe? What are you studying?
So I guess some of the skills that I learnt through Energy Breakthrough with the fitness side of things, I'm now doing a Bachelor of Exercise Science and a Masters of Exercise Physiology, which I really enjoy. I think some of the things that everyone will be learning today will be things that I'm learning in class. So
that's
fantastic.
A really long title. What does that involve? What do you do as part of that course?
Basically, we're learning how to enhance athlete performance and learning different skills and things to apply to races like this to make people move faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, good. And avoid injury as well? Is
Definitely.
That part of
Yep,
it?
a rehabilitation side as well, yes.
Really good. So what sort of work would you get into after university? What would you do after that?
So you can do exercise science. So I'm working with athletes and also doing a bit of research in terms of researching what's best for athlete performance. And you can also get into like a clinical side, working in hospitals for rehabilitation and life after operations and different things like that.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. And very very selfless, very much helping other people get better and improve. That's really great. So tell us about Energy Breakthrough for you, aside from sort of the social aspects. What are some of the things you learnt throughout the process?
Definitely. I think I've got a lot of skills in terms of leadership, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I think sometimes Energy Breakthrough can be a really male-orientated activity, and so being a female that was really interested in it, it led me to quite a lot of opportunities, such like what I'm doing today. So I think, trying to get yourself as involved as you can and really trying to just embrace all of the activities that you can to try and better yourself and improve your personal skills, get out of your comfort zone.
That's really good. Yeah, one of our aims as part of the Energy Breakthrough is to have lots of girls involved, which I know when you're in the tech classes can be a little bit difficult, and we do get a lot of teachers who write and say, I've got lots of boys involved, can we just have a boys team in the primary schools? And we say no. One of our key rules is to have 4 boys and 4 girls participating, and I think that actually helps create a good atmosphere. Would you agree?
Definitely, yeah. I know personally with my friendship group, we gelled so well with the 4 boys and the 4 girls in those mixed teams. We absolutely loved it, and that was kind of what made it so special. I think sometimes we need to include girls more and really try and make an effort, because it is such an important program that we can learn from everyone.
Really good. Thank you. And you are actually in 3 weeks' time. What are you going to be doing at the Energy Break?
I think I'm helping judge some of the presentations, so I'll be around to come say hello if you see me.
That's good. Fantastic. So any of the schools on the webinar today, if you do see Meg as one of the your judges, make sure you go up and say thanks for your presentation and part of it. So thank you, Meg. Thank you very much. Well done. So give her a round of applause. All right, so onto our main event of the morning, and we're looking at can we add some really smart technology to our energy breakthrough programs to make them even smarter, to find out what's going on out there, to find out if we can track fatigue and if we can avoid crashes. And one thing we all know is that if your vehicle crashes on the track, that can save you a lot of time. So how can we avoid those crashes, not just for time, but for safety as well? Safety is really important. So I promised at the start we've assembled a really excellent panel, and please welcome this team at the moment. So Dr. David Hoxley will take over the microphone very shortly. Dr. Russell Anderson, who's a senior lecturer in physics, will join me as well. Dr. Toan Castle. Toan, come on down. Dr. Niven Warakadi is not here at the moment, will be joining us, and Mr. Luke Daly as well will be running from here. So without any further ado, let's get this interactive webinar more interactive and happening. And over to you, Dr. Hoxley.
Hi, so my name's David. I'm a physicist, and Russell's a physicist. He's like me at Bendigo. I'm from Bandura, and Tone's a mathematician. So we look into the basics of nature, but we love difficult and unusual problems. And this is a difficult and unusual problem. It's a fantastic but slightly battered car. It's obviously fallen over a few times, and I can see I could not fit inside here. I could fit my thigh inside there, I reckon. So the trick here is to work out, if you're inside here and you're pedaling like crazy and you're doing like 30 kilometers an hour, you don't want to have to stop because, well, pit stops take time. But if you push yourself too hard, you start to lose time because you're tired, and maybe you make bad decisions, and you're sort of going through at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're running for 24 hours, rain's pouring down, all of a sudden you take a wrong turn, you smash into something. You could end up hurting yourself quite badly, actually. So what would be nice is if the people in the pit could work out what's happening inside here. So the easiest, most exciting way to do that is to use something that's based around what we all have got in our pockets. So I'm going to throw to Russell to talk about what we've got in our pockets.
Thanks, David. Thank you, David. So yeah, we want to set you guys a couple of challenges. We want you to get your thinking caps on. And in part, this is going to hopefully help you all present to the judges in Maryborough next month. They've probably heard a lot of the same things before, and with these two challenges we're going to give you today, we'd like to prepare you and maybe give you the edge for something else to talk about that maybe they haven't heard of before. So we want to talk about two things. The first is crash detection, and that's going to be based on a smartphone alone. And the second thing we're going to talk about is your body. So when your body crashes, and that's going to be based on some exercise, physiology, and some laboratory grade kind of demonstrations. But in this first challenge, the thing I'd like you to all think about is what sensors are actually in a smartphone. So we're going to ask you to have a think about what you can use in your smartphone to actually detect a crash. And of course, there are many, many sensors in a phone. I'll show you some of them right now. So you're now going to be looking at my phone, hopefully.
Got any games, Russell?
I have a few games. We could try and emulate Angry Birds version in one of these vehicles, but I don't think BSE would be too happy if I threw their vehicle across the room. What I'm going to show you is the phone version of this. So this here is a spirit level, and this here is a spirit level in my phone. And as I tilt the spirit level one way, or tilt it the other way, I get the same kind of signal on my phone as I do by looking at this antiquated device that people use every day to measure angles with. And thank you very much, David. So you've probably all seen a spirit level. You may not know that your phone has one. It's actually using two sensors. It's using a gyroscopic sensor in your phone and also an accelerometer. So sometimes different sensors are used to give you one signal. Another great example of that, which you might want to use for this challenge, is GPS. So if I go to Maps and I type in where you guys will be headed next month, I can look for Maryborough in Victoria. And let's now navigate to Maryborough. And I want to remind you what this looks like when you're actually on the road using your GPS. So if I press start now, it takes me 54 minutes to get there if I'm driving. And you're all very familiar with this blue arrow. This blue arrow is what you see when you're using your smartphone to navigate. A lot of things go into that blue arrow. Satellites orbiting the Earth, a dozen or so GPS satellites orbiting the Earth, making sure that no matter where you are, even if you're precluded by buildings or mountains, you'll be able to see at least 2 of those or 3 of those satellites at any one time. Atomic clocks are in those satellites. They're keeping time to 1 second in a billion years. That means if they were a wristwatch, they would only lose 1 second in a significant fraction of the age of the universe. All these things are required to give you a very, very accurate picture of where you are on Earth to about 1 meter. We also have a magnetometer in here, which is acting like a compass, and that's allowing us to orient the arrow and point it in a certain direction. We also have signals from phone towers, which are used to give us this augmented GPS that tells us how fast we're going. So I can see on the screen now that I've got 0 kilometers an hour. If I make a fool of myself and run towards Towan, I might be able to make that 1 kilometer an hour. Let's give that a go. So ready for the camera pan. I'll try and get this up to 1 kilometer an hour without losing my microphone. It also relies on me getting a strong phone signal from many, many sensors. So I'm going to run back and forth across the room and try and increase that to 1. It's not going to happen today.
You could check your phone.
I could chuck my phone, yes. I might have that might be the last thing it says. My point here is that there's many, many things in your smartphone that contribute to these 2 signals: where you are, how fast you're going, that's the GPS signal, and the spirit level, which is telling us what angle our phone is at. So let's now hand over to you guys, and you're going to put your thinking caps on to figure out how you could use something in your smartphone to detect a crash. And also, what are you going to do once you've detected it? It's no good just telling the person who's crashed that they've crashed, because they'll know about that. What might you do to let us know, or let someone important know, that you've actually crashed? So I'm going to hand it over to you guys now for a 10-minute session with your teachers, and we'll do a callback at about 10:35. Over to you. Okay, schools, just checking in for a 5-minute update. Hopefully this has given you something to think about. If you have already come up with a solution, hopefully it's at smartphone app level deployment, and you're ready to upload it to the iTunes store. If you're ready to finish this exercise, maybe you should think about any disadvantages to your approach if you haven't already. What cost is there, either efficiency, safety, or even ethical perhaps, about your approach? And if you've got any questions for the experts, maybe write them down as well to ask us at the end of the session. I'll let you get back to it. Okay, folks, let's bring it back to the main session. I'm now going to do a call and answer for all the schools and find out what you guys come up with. I'll unmute each school in order, and I'll start off with asking Caulfield Grammar to say hello to us and let us know if they've come up with something. Hello.
How you going?
Good. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. We've probably got one up on a lot of other people in that we already use mobile phones in our vehicles.
Tell us about that.
We use a program called Track Addict.
Uh-huh.
We feed that back to our pits. We've got a laptop at our pits that shows us the positioning of each vehicle on the track and what speed they're doing. So we are very big, especially with our open team, at keeping an eye on their speed, because it's not something that they're always consciously checking and maintaining their 60k speed limit. So we constantly check on them. And then with that feedback, we know if something's gone wrong. If they've stopped, we can then check with our radio communication if they're okay, if they've crashed, if they've just been caught up in something else, and what we need to action.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so being stopped is a good indication that something isn't quite right. Doesn't necessarily mean that you've crashed. When I stopped at the traffic lights today for more than 10 seconds, because if you're at a traffic light for more than 10 seconds in Bendigo, something is definitely wrong. And Google's machine learning detected this. It wasn't like every traffic light's going to have a problem with being there for 10 seconds. But given the number of people that have Google Maps on when they enter that intersection, it knew that if I was there for more than 10 seconds, something was wrong. And a new feature immediately prompted me to choose an alternate route automatically based on me sitting at this anomalously long 10-second intersection in Bendigo. So yes, being stopped is a good indicator that something might be wrong, but how could you distinguish that perhaps from other signals? In other words, whether you have a chain breakage or a crash. And I might take some feedback from some other people who haven't got smartphones in their vehicles yet, but we'll come back to you shortly. Thanks very much, Caulfield Grammar. So I'm going to move on to Frankston Heights now. Could Frankston Heights give us a wave? Hey, we can hear all of your enthusiastic voices. Thanks so much for being with us, Frankston Heights. So what have you guys come up with for a smartphone sensor that will tell us whether something's gone amiss?
So one of our groups came up with Heartrate Detector.
Tim, could I get your students to come up to your computer and speak loudly into your microphone, please?
We had a heart rate detector. So like they get the heart rate detector, they put it on their heart, and it like goes through to their phone. And back at the pits, the teacher or a parent has the other phone that has it. So like if you crash, your heart rate should go up higher. So they'll know that you've crashed.
That is an awesome idea. I hadn't actually thought of a non-vehicular way to determine a crash. But indeed, when you crash, something happens to the human rider as well. That's really, really clever. That's so awesome. And did you think of any thing that might also cause the heart rate to go up in a vehicle? Like maybe, I don't know, getting up and close to a competitor might also increase the heart rate. How could you distinguish between the heart rate going up from that and the heart rate going up because you've crashed?
Like usually there would be people would like just have like a jump, so the heart rate might go up and then go back down for another competitor, and it might stay up for a crash.
That's super, super good analytic thinking. I really like that. So discrete changes in signals, they can tell us about an event, but actually you've really got to dig down into how the signal's changing with time. And that's super, super good analytic thinking to distinguish between a crash and another type of event, because your heart rate is going to probably go all over the place during energy breakthrough, unless you're as calm as Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin and keep it down at 88 for the whole time, 88 beats per minute. Can you think of any consequence, perhaps, of or some disadvantages of this approach?
What would be the disadvantage?
Running out of battery, right? Each person's different with the heart rate.
Oh yeah, that's a really, really good point. Every rider is different. And that's something you guys have to contend with all the time, even with the performance of your vehicle, be it seat placement and cadence to sort of high cadence, depending on what's optimum for your riders. So yeah, you might have to have your app kind of be catered to each rider. That could be a challenge or a disadvantage for sure. Have you guys got anything else you'd like to add for your smartphone app before I move on to the next school? Please let us know.
So my group thought of like a live camera maybe.
Oh yes.
People in the vehicle. So and then if we have a crash, the people at the pit stops will detect it because they'll see on like their phone or whatever we have the camera going into.
That's fantastic. That's a really direct way of determining a crash. You're not relying on any abstract sensors that are just numbers. You're actually looking at a picture, which is the most obvious way to determine whether the vehicle's crashed.
And we also came up with like a microphone on the t-shirt maybe.
Oh wow, yes.
So and then it will read through a phone, and the person in the vehicle that had a crash could talk into the microphone.
There's something special you said then about the microphone, not just being in the vehicle, but you said in the t-shirt.
Yeah, like it will have it clipped onto the t-shirt.
Yeah, very cool. This speaks to this idea of wearable technology, which some of the researchers at Trobe University are developing. And this wearable technology is basically trying to make sensors more efficient, lighter, and more deployable in the field, whether it's in sport or other settings. So yeah, it's really great thinking, Frankston Heights. Thanks very much. I'll just move on to Caulfield Grammar. Caulfield Grammar, are you there?
Sure are.
Hello.
Hello.
So we're wondering what you've come up with for your smartphone challenge for detecting a crash.
Well, apart from stopping, when we notice that, we have radio communications with our riders.
Oh, already? That's excellent.
We do. We work very closely with Gels Park Primary School. So Gels Park Primary School tried these things out a couple of years ago. So a lot of our kids come from Gels Park. So we know that some of the primary schools are using the radio communication as well.
And what sort of things, I mean, once you've got the radio communication, you can really communicate anything. You can communicate whether you've crashed, what you had for breakfast, or whether you're ready for a rider change. But what sort of things do you guys get out of the radio communication that are most useful? Do you have certain protocols, or what do you find it useful for?
Yeah, go for it.
So we've actually had some issues before with riders not actually being clear enough on the radio. But there was one occasion that one of our riders crashed, and they were actually incredibly clear about what happened and if they were okay. And that made it a lot easier at the pits. So we've tried to implement a protocol, like if you crash, you tell your team manager that you crashed, and then they will normally ask you, if you're okay, do you need help? And then the response to that would either be like, yes, I need someone to come get the bike, or no, I'm okay, I'm just waiting for the marshals to put me back upright. So we've tried to implement that as best as we can, but obviously sometimes the adrenaline of a race doesn't quite help that situation.
Caulfield Grammar, that's really fascinating to hear. And I guess what could have been a disadvantage, which is this ambiguity of signal, just like any signal, whether it's like a GPS location or a velocity, it's going to have some noise, right? Whenever we get into the lab and measure things, whether it's a Higgs boson or a gravitational wave, or even, asking someone what they had for breakfast, there's the signal, which is the bit you care about, and there's the noise, which is the bit you don't care about. And you just reminded me that there's a real kind of analogy between radio communication and any measurement of a signal, and that is there's the signal and the noise. And actually, I have a role with the Volunteer Fire Brigade in Victoria, the CFA, and we spend a lot of time maximising the signal and minimising the noise. And we do that via a thing called radio discipline. And it sounds like you've actually undertaken the exact kind of protocols for radio discipline that people do in emergency response services to minimise the noise and maximise the signal. So that's really encouraging. Well done.
We've definitely tried, so.
Good on you. Thanks very much.
What happens if something breaks? So what happens if something breaks? So you've got maybe an audio feed, great. But what happens if the audio feed breaks? Is there any redundancy in any of these systems?
Yeah, that's right. So we've had already a great set of signals. We've got camera, radio, we've got this phone tracking app for velocity, and we've also got a heartbeat monitor. So these are all kind of complementary signals, and that redundancy is really good to have when you're in a field environment like a race where something could go wrong, and often many things will. So Caulfield Grammar, I'm going to thank you for your contribution now and move on to Curated Secondary. Curated, are you there?
Hello. Hey, Ross.
G'day, Ethan. How's it going? Nice to see you.
Thanks. So we've came up with a way that would have the phone mounted on the top of the thing and would have the level going. So if we find disturbance, we would be able to see that.
And if there is a disturbance in level or speed, we would then contact the rider by microphone.
Awesome.
Check if they are okay or not.
Very good. And I guess with the level, you're talking about the spirit level, yes? So when I'm on a energy breakthrough vehicle, I can imagine that going around corners is going to give me a certain signal. What kind of ways might you distinguish that signal from full-on crashing?
It would be, I assume, more dramatic and pretty fast and hit hard.
Absolutely. So in terms of a number, though, what would the word dramatic or hit hard mean in terms of the number that I get out from this angle?
Be over a certain degree. You'd have like over about 45 degrees of an angle because it would be flipped.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what you're talking about now is using a threshold to distinguish between just regular cornering and, whoops, I've actually flipped or gone to 45 degrees. You're unlikely to get to 45 degrees when you're cornering for lots of reasons of physics that I won't discuss right now, but that's a really good way to distinguish between a crash and regular EB operation, is that idea of a threshold. And also you said augmenting it with the speed. Have you guys got any thing you can think of that might be a disadvantage of this approach?
If you have crashed, it may damage the mounting as it'll be on the frame in itself.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, and then you'll lose that as a sensor, so you'll need some redundancy as well. Thanks heaps for that, Curated. We'll now move on to Barra Education Centre. Hello, Barra.
Hello. So we came up with we could use our smartwatches and connect them to our smartphones, and the smartphones are in the pits with our team managers. So then they can track our movement on the track, and if movement hasn't occurred, they can then track the flags and lights to see if they need to come around to us on the track.
Barra, is this something you're already doing with your smartwatches and smartphones? It sounds pretty revolutionary.
Yep. And then if it is needed for them to come out, we've got voice-activated walkie-talkies. So if we're in a crash and we're unable to move, we don't have to press a button or anything, and we can tell the pits where we are and then we have crashed.
Very cool. That is very cool. And if you guys had to introduce radio discipline to make sure that you've maximised the signal and minimised the noise?
No, not really.
You're all pretty disciplined already. Well, I can hear that from your live stream. There's not as much raucous behaviour in the background. So well done. Have you guys got any? Yeah, please go ahead.
There you go.
It sounds like you had another thing to add to your solution. Have you got any other features in your killer app?
But at the moment, as we don't use smartphones in our trikes, a method we have is because we have more than one trike in the race. If we come past another trike who is crashed, we have lights that we flick. So then when they come back around past our pits, they can notify the pits that we've crashed.
Wow, that is another original complementary solution to adding one more level of redundancy. We must have like 7 or 8 levels of redundancy now, which is really, really good. And definitely lap time can be used to indicate the possibility of a crash. The only disadvantage with using lap times is that it's a slow kind of feedback compared to the immediacy of detecting something in real time. Thanks so much for that, guys. I'm going to pass off to the next school, which is St. Augustine's. St. Augustine's, are you with us? Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to have you with us. Welcome.
We're a little bit late to it, so we're just sort of listening in and just taking on board all the ideas.
No, what? Have you guys already implemented some of the? Have you guys already implemented some of the solutions that you've heard about today, or?
No, not really. Our modes of communication have been pretty stock standard, but yeah, there's lots of great ideas which we'll look to implement for our teams this year.
It certainly is. We're going to wrap up this first challenge. I've been absolutely blown away with how many original solutions we've come up with. When we sort of set this challenge, we had 1 or 2 things in mind because we already learnt from Energy Breakthrough themselves that some schools had developed a smartphone app, and that smartphone app was based on the idea of a spirit level exceeding some threshold, and combining that with the GPS data to indicate that a crash may have occurred. And what that smartphone app has done, it's not publicly available, but the smartphone app then indicated to the team at HQ what the team's GPS coordinates were so they could go out if radio communication had failed and track them down. So thanks heaps for your suggestions. We're now going to wet your whistle with a more human-based challenge, which is finding out when you have crashed or when one of your riders has crashed. So we're going to move to the physiology demonstration now, where we've got a couple of students from Bendigo Southeast College, which we're really happy to have with us today. And they have also very kindly brought over one of their vehicles. So thanks so much, Bendigo Southeast, for coming along and bringing over one of your vehicles. And I've also got Luke Daly here, who's a PhD student at La Trobe in exercise physiology, and he's going to get a live humanoid in this vehicle and track them using the laboratory-grade exercise physiology kit that he uses for his research. Take it away, Luke. Yep, should be good.
Got me? All right, cool. So, hello everyone. Thankfully at the start of the session we had that excellent explanation by Meg which explained what exercise science is. So that's what my area is. Generally when we're looking at human performance and how to improve performance in sport, there's sort of 2 main sides to what we look at. There's physiology. We're looking at how the systems in the body work to allow you to keep exercising. And also there's the biomechanics, or what the body segments are actually doing in the movement, which we can then look at to optimise performance. So in terms of physiology, or what the human body systems do, really everything that we do in the EBT is aerobic. So we use oxygen from the air to produce energy, which allows you to keep pedalling along. Now, there's a bunch of responses that happen in the body which allow you to increase that amount of oxygen. So I'm sure everybody's encountered it when they've been exercising. You breathe heavier, that gets more oxygen into your lungs. Your heart starts to beat faster, that gets the air that's coming into your lungs, takes the oxygen out and spreads it all around the body through your blood. And generally, you'll also get flushed because all the blood vessels in your skin are going to increase their blood flow to allow you to radiate more heat so that you don't get too hot. So when thinking about how you're going to optimise performance for when you're actually in riding the trike, those kinds of things are the kinds of things that you're going to be looking at for increasing the intensity that you can go at when you're actually pedalling. So, chuck that stuff. We'll get Bell up and into the cart now. So, as I said, you can just chuck that down. The other side to what we look at is the mechanics of what happens. And thank you to Val here for demonstrating. You can jump in the trike if you want. And so what we're going to be looking at there is how we can optimise the body position to increase our efficiency. So those aerobic aspects are going to increase the amount of energy that you can produce. The biomechanics is going to help us to apply that energy better when we're actually cycling in the trike. So I'm sure everybody can relate as well. Things like if you've got your seat too low on your push bike and sitting down, it's going to be really hard to produce a lot of power. And the same sorts of optimisations can be done with your trikes. So if we've got Bell inside the trike there, if you want to start pedalling, Bell. Now we've actually got a laboratory grade system on here. You can probably see those yellow boxes that are strapped onto Bell's feet. Whoa, that's going backwards. What is going on there? All right.
This is real life research, mate.
That's exactly it. Something always goes wrong in research.
That's okay.
You might just recalibrate.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yep. Anyway, while I keep talking, might just grab you out of there for a second, Bell.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, if you've got your bike seat too low, you've probably all experienced it, where it makes it really hard to pedal and produce a lot of power. Just get you to stand up. We'll redo the calibration. So if you just stand there, yep. Hands by side.
You're doing very well to stand.
All right. Still. You can jump back in. Thanks, Bell.
Could you just explain the sensors and what the system...
Yeah. So if you jump back in. So essentially what we've got is a little sensor, like the level sensor that Russ was explaining before that's in your smartphone, on each segment of Bell's body. And then basically we've got this software system which can integrate the data from all of them in real time to give us this model in 3D space that you can see moving. Yep. So if you want to go again, Bell. Awesome. Now when we look at this, down the bottom of the screen here we've got this wavy looking graph which is telling us the range of motion that Bell's hip is going through as she's pedalling. Now, like I was explaining before, with having your bike seat too high or too low, there's an optimum range that we want that to be in. So, if I were to... Where'd that phone go? Bell looks pretty comfortable in there at the moment, but if I stick a bit of foam in, as though we've made a shorter trike, and she starts pedalling again, you can see that we've shifted all of those wave patterns up further on the graph and probably outside of our optimal range. Thanks for that, Bell. Now, as I was saying before, this is important as being outside of the optimal range will make it more difficult to efficiently apply the power that we actually can produce to make the vehicle go as fast as we can.
That's it, yeah. That's awesome, Luke. Thanks very much for giving us a cool idea of what exercise physiology in the lab looks like and how you can use these inertial sensors on a body to track optimal performance. And let's give a round of applause for BSE. So we're now going to ask you to think about this second challenge, which is using any sensor now, either those in your smartphone, anything you've seen today, or anything you can come up with. How are you going to tell that the rider has crashed, that perhaps detect or predict rider fatigue? And Luke's mentioned some stuff about what happens to your body during exercise. Nivan, would you like to say anything about what happens to your body during exercise that might be perceived as a signal as well?
Well, we all know that after a heavy bout of exercise, can you see me? Not sure.
Yep.
After any heavy bout of exercise, we obviously feel tired. And the other word we associate with exercise is fatigue. And so that's a major implication of any heavy, longer-term type of exercise. And I think with our question is, how do we actually combat fatigue? Or what are some of the things we can do to actually minimize fatigue?
Nivan, can you give us an idea of maybe what physical measurements might hint at fatigue?
So fatigue we can define as any decrease in maximal purposeful force that we generate. And an easy way to measure fatigue is asking someone to produce a maximal contraction before, say, an exercise bout, and then have them repeat that maximal MVC, we call it, maximal voluntary contraction, after the exercise bout, see if there's any drop, and then we can use that drop as a measure of fatigue. There are a number of other ways we can also measure fatigue, through biomechanics also, but that's a very easy measure to do that, through a maximal voluntary contraction.
All right, so I'm going to hand it over to the schools again, and I want you guys to put your thinking caps on for challenge 2. And we're not going to prescribe any particular solution. We want you to come up with something that you may have already done yourself, or something you've seen, based on something you've seen today. And think about this question of fatigue, and what type of signal might predict or indicate it. Again, what type of signal might also give you a signal that isn't fatigue but looks similar, and how might you distinguish that from actual fatigue? And what are you going to do once you've done it? And finally, are there any disadvantages to your approach, and how might you overcome them? So I'll hand over to you guys, and we'll reconvene in 10 minutes. Let's go through each of the schools and see what you've all come up with for detecting the crash of the human being. I'm going to go in reverse order, and in fact, I'm going to invite Kennington Primary School, who we lost for a moment there. Kennington, are you with us?
Yep. Yes.
Hey, welcome to the games.
Hello, Kennington.
Hola.
So how are you guys going to detect when the human being in the vehicle has a crash or gets fatigued?
We were thinking that his heart rate would go up, and his respiration rate would also go up, and his power meter might, his speed might go down, and he'll be taking in more oxygen. So we were thinking we could use an oxygen meter, a heart rate monitor, and a power meter.
That is a truly sophisticated solution. Can I ask the two exercise physiologists if that's a research-grade answer?
Absolutely, yes. You'll have a pretty big outlay for that, but if you can afford it, go for it.
So it included something that I've learned from talking to these experts here about exercise physiology, and that is that it's not just your heart rate that matters, but it's also your power output. Nivan, do you want to tell us a bit about that, how that can indicate fatigue?
Yep, so any gradual decrease in performance, i.e. maybe pedal rate or speed, would be indicators of fatigue. It's interesting though, when we think about fatigue, we think about what's happening in the muscles in terms of the buildup of biochemical waste products through respiration. I'm sure you would have all probably heard about lactic acid is a major marker for fatigue, and we can do blood tests to detect the amount of lactic acid and then make an assumption on the amount of fatigue. But when we think about fatigue, we also should think about central fatigue, which is the fatigue in the central nervous system, in the brain, because at the end of the day, it's your brain that is sending signals to your muscles to contract. And we can also have fatigue centrally, in that the signals from the brain are not coming down as fast enough to contract the muscles and thus produce a decrease in performance. With the sensors available to us, perhaps in one of these, we might not be able to measure that, but certainly with the more physical, muscular types of changes or performance changes, we can definitely measure that with many of the sensors that were just mentioned, yeah.
Awesome, thanks very much, Nivan. I'm wondering, Kennington, have you guys thought about which sensors you might use to detect power output?
Oh, we would put things in the pedals, I reckon, because that would show that that's where the maximum output of power is going.
That's super impressive, Kennington.
Nice one.
We are quite blown away by those answers. It's really, really awesome. I'm going to now thank you again and hand over to Caulfield Grammar. Have you guys come up with any ways to detect fatigue?
So I am a Year 12 chemistry student, so this was very in my realm of knowledge, so I was very excited about this challenge. But we were thinking fatigue often comes, or the way that we see it in the pits is by lap times. So if a rider's lap times are slower, then that's usually usually a representation that they're getting tired, although that's not perfect. So lap times might be short because they might be yellow flagged, or they might have had a crash, like an actual vehicle crash. So some of the ways that we deal with that already is with our radio communication. We can ask a rider how they're feeling. And sometimes that's not perfect because a rider might have a mental barrier, like, oh, I can't do this anymore, but they actually still can. So that's something we try and consider as well.
That's awesome, yeah. So I guess aside from riders being unreliable narrators sometimes, or perhaps just wanting to go that extra mile, you've got those two signals that augment each other to determine fatigue. And what do you guys do about fatigue when you determine it? Does it help you with some element of the race?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, if you're going out there for a win, you want your maximum output at all times. So the minute we notice, that's where we'll call a rider in for a rider change or something like that. A lot of the time it's visual because riders don't want their ride times cut short, and we completely get that. So we'll get them to give us a signal as they go past the pits. If a rider can still smile at you, then you know they're doing okay. If there's not a lot of emotion in their face, you know that you've got to step up and say, hey, that's enough, you'll get another chance, and we don't want to burn you out. So
my exercise physiology colleague here is dying to say something, so get into it, man.
No, it was interesting. One of the students mentioned just literally asking the rider about their sense of fatigue. And there are, rating systems like perceived level of exertion, which I guess can correlate to the amount of fatigue an athlete is feeling. And you might be even recently in the news about the marathon. There was a marathon runner that broke the 2-hour barrier. But there was a bit of controversy in that they said he was aided, in that he had pacers that were helping him keep up to that world record time. And so as your perceived level of exertion changes, it's more difficult to maintain a particular rate. But if you had an aid, i.e. other riders or maybe a metronome beeping, that could actually help you maintain a faster rate than you ordinarily wouldn't because of the fatigue that's going on.
Didn't sailors used to sing songs when they're pulling on ropes? Probably the same sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same principle. Yeah.
And interesting that you say that. We actually, because we've got the radio communication, we say to all of our riders, what information do you want when you're riding? And we actually have some of our students that will say, tell us jokes, sing us songs, all weird things, but it's what works for them.
That's amazing. I'm really
them in as well.
The coolest thing about this this part of the discussion is that I've now got a new sensor in my head, and that is smile detector. So, Caulfield Grammar, that's a really creative solution. Thanks so much for your contribution.
No worries.
We'll now move on to Frankston Heights. Are you there with us, Frankston Heights?
Hello again. Hello. How are you guys going to detect human fatigue? Let us know.
So the same as some other people, use a GPS to track how fast we're going. So if we're slowing down, people can track how fast or slow we're going.
Yeah, so this comes into lap times, but I guess what's different about using GPS is you're not relying on individual lap time, which might have a significant delay to detect fatigue. But if you can use GPS, you might be able to detect those changes in power output in real time. So that's a cool way of doing it. What way would you detect the GPS signal, do you think?
Well, maybe we could use. Put a phone in the vehicle.
Yeah, awesome. And that would augment the sensors you had before. Do you guys do anything in particular at the moment to detect fatigue, or what do you do once you've learnt about driver fatigue?
We have this kind of little monitor lap time.
Yeah, nice. And do you find that riders are accurate reporters of their own fatigue, or do you actually have to rely on those numbers?
I think they're pretty accurate. Yeah.
Very cool. Anything else you'd like to add while I've got on the phone Frankston Heights? Yes, we have another participant. Come up to the front.
Russell, I like the fact that there's hardware solutions, software solutions, and wetware solutions as
yeah,
well.
There's a lot of different platforms going on here. Hello.
Hi. So we sort of like a heat sensor in the vehicle, because if you're starting to get hot and you start to sweat, you can see the fatigue, because you're usually when you're hotter, you usually feel more fatigue.
I like that so much, but I'm going to actually hand over to our exercise physiology experts and ask them what they think of that solution.
Excellent answer. Body heat is one really good indicator of peripheral fatigue, or fatigue in the muscles. Basically, if you can't get the heat out, they're going to start to work less efficiently. So completely independently of lap times, power, anything like that, you'll be able to tell before the person starts slowing down if their body temperature starts to spike really quickly. Yep.
Yeah, great suggestion. Yeah.
So this gets back to the wearable sensor technology you're talking about, Russell, too. So you've got a shirt that's got temperature sensors all over it, and then straight away you can pick up, like or the trousers, or put a thermometer on your underpants or whatever.
Yeah, I think this is also cool because it distinguishes between measuring something that's happened when it's possibly too late and predicting it. And as the exercise physiologist experts here tell us, temperature is actually a precursor to fatigue really kicking in. So measuring temperature is a really great solution. How might you measure a temperature of a humanoid in an energy breakthrough vehicle?
Maybe, because I've heard something called